Hello YouTube, it's Chris, Kerbal Space Program Career Mode. We're going to build a jet today. You only have a few parts, I don't have any landing gear, so it's going to have to be a takeoff in the vertical with some boosters. I do have the basic jet engine and a couple of fuselage parts, the fuselage tank and some control surfaces and some tail fins and the swept wing. So we're going to make a rudimentary jet. And I'm going to skip through a lot of this because it's just basically the build and a couple tests, and then I'll get to the actual working model. And here is the working model. It's a cockpit with two fuselage fuel tanks, swept wings with control surfaces on them, and then a tail section with a vertical stabilizer, and that has a control surface also. And then the horizontal stabilizers are actually they have their built-in control. So I just I'm mounting these fuselage parts as the engine because I don't have any nacelles yet. So these are basically acting as nacelles, and I make a jet, which it actually works. It just took a little bit of fine tuning after this build. I had a couple of crashes, and this is basically what I'm going to use. It's got the radial intakes because I don't have the ones that go on the front of the nacelle yet, and I'm going to have to launch this vertically because I don't have any landing gear yet, which is, I don't know, it's kind of strange, but I put this into a vertical, and then I put a couple of sepultrons to get it vertical launched. You start up the jet motors first, and then you can set off those sepultrons and release the docking clamp. And then it flies. And as I mentioned, I was going to use, well, I used sepultrons, but I was originally going to try these solid rocket boosters, but they just threw off my center of lift and center of mass too much. So I ended up not going with them because it caused catastrophic launch failure. And it wouldn't be a Kerbal test without an explosion. So here is my solid rocket booster experiment gone awry. So yeah, that just wasn't what I wanted. Just way too OP, I guess, and complete loss of control. And I made a slight adjustment. I used the sepultrons like I had mentioned earlier, and I was able to actually take off. So you want to definitely spool up your jets until they reach, optimum power, and then you can launch the sepultrons and release that docking clamper, launch stabilizer, and then I did jettison those sepultrons just to get them off the plane and reduce drag and mass. So I am going to head out to the island. Unfortunately, I made a mistake by going to see how fast I could do time acceleration without the jet disintegrating, and it didn't take long. Once I hit 4 times, or just about the end of 3 times, it started to go crazy. Lost a wing. Thankfully, I put parachutes on because it saved a Kerbal today. So now that I have a working jet, I decide to throw some science equipment on it because that's what you got to do to progress. You got to get some science, more science. So I'm going to add those science parts onto the fuselage. I'm not going to do the goo containers only because it's heavy, and I didn't really have a good space to put them. I guess I got to put them out on the wing somewhere, but I just wanted to get a launch going with just some basic science equipment, just get a little bit of more of a flying, and I really haven't done too much with the space planes at all. So it's kind of all new to me. I've focused mostly on rockets, and it's kind of nice to take a break from rocketry and doing some nice aerospace stuff like aerodynamic and atmospheric flight. Basically, I'm just going to go ahead and launch this out and go for a long flight. I accidentally, again, did some time acceleration and ended up crashing. But also to note that those fuel lines are not required. I don't know what I was thinking, but it worked without them. I just happened to put them on because I like putting fuel lines on everything. But they are not required. Now time for the final flight. This I'll do some science experiments while I'm flying. I'm gonna head over to the island with the military base. I'll do a low flyby. There's actually no science to be gotten there. It counts as shore, so I've already done those. That's filled up. Did a little bit of science on the way out there, and so I circled around the landing strip. I came back. I was actually heading to gain some altitude to do a high altitude test, and I did some time acceleration, did something silly, and I ended up having a flame out and an uncontrollable spin, and it ripped one of the wings off again, and I was just trying to fight it on the way down to try to get some back towards land, but I couldn't. So it crashed. But that's just how things go in Kerbal. If you're not crashing, you're not having fun. And we're going to buzz the military base, and we're going to take this turn around this little cliff here. And then I'm going to go for altitude. And now I start climbing here. I get to about 10,000 feet or so, or 10,000 meters. And I see I have time acceleration on ×2. And then I lose control. I hit the V button to go to the IVA for some reason, and I still have one wing and one jet engine. I turned it on to see if I could maybe limp back towards the coast, which I could not. Well, anyway, that is the part 7, the jet age. If you like it, subscribe, comment, and request anything you'd like.